name is Alice Massimi, and I'm the Director of Strategic Communication at Hiring Our Heroes. Hiring Our Heroes is a program of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and our mission is to connect military veterans, spouses, and caregivers with meaningful career opportunities. We're very pleased to host this panel discussion about opportunities in government contracting. We want to give a special thanks to our event sponsors who make everything we do here at HOH possible, including Leidos, Toyota, Brazen, Boeing, and Booz Allen Hamilton. We have joining us today panelists from Booz Allen Hamilton, WWC Global, and Jacobs. All of them are committed to hiring military talent and are here to talk with us about in-demand skill sets, resources, and tips for getting hired. If you're joining us as a viewer, please leave your questions in the Q&A box, and we will do our best to get those to our panelists later in this session. Please be patient as we do have a large group of job seekers joining us today, so it might take a few minutes to respond to your questions. This session is being recorded and will be uploaded for later viewing on our Career Services resource page at hiringourheroes.org/resources. Please stay until the end where we'll announce more upcoming events. I'd like to now introduce our panelists who will be joining us today. First up is Jason Boone, who is the Military and Diversity Talent Sourcing Lead at Jacobs. We will also have Greg Rivera, the military recruiter with Booz Allen Hamilton, and Amanda Crow, Senior Recruiter with WWC Global. To the panelists, thank you for joining us today. And let's start our conversation today by going around our virtual room and each of you introducing yourself, any military and professional background, and maybe some more details about your role and your company and industry. So let's get started. Jason, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Alice. I appreciate the opportunity to join and speak with everyone with the Hiring Our Heroes program. Truly a great organization. So again, my name is Jason Boone, and I have been very involved with the military my entire life. I was born in Fort Bragg and grew up an Army brat, so I have that life. I served in the Army Reserves coming out of high school and through college, and then I became a recruiter. In my entire career, I've been focused on recruiting the military community. I've worked for a variety of organizations, big organizations like Tech Systems, SAIC, Lockheed Martin, and now with Jacobs. And through all of those, I've focused on the military community recruitment. And at Jacobs, I lead our military recruiting and diversity hiring programs.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. Greg?
Hey, good afternoon, Alice, and thank you for having me here today, and specifically to Booz Allen for being here. Hiring Heroes does an amazing job in helping veterans and spouses as they're looking to find their next career. As mentioned, my name is Greg Rivera. I am the lead for our military recruiting team. I'm a former Navy supply officer, served for 6 years, been out a heck of a lot longer than I was in. Got out over 22 years ago, and I've been pretty much in recruiting 20 of those 22 years. Fortunate enough to be here, fortunate enough to have the opportunity to come to Booz Allen 12 years ago. Most of my earlier days were spent as a client-facing recruiter, where I worked with numerous different hiring managers and teams across our 400 locations in 20 countries and helping them identify talent. For me, fortunately, I had the opportunity to hire quite a few veterans. Of the 1,100 people that I did hire while in that role, about 65% of them were veterans. So we understand truly the value that veterans bring to an organization. And again, thank you for being here today.
And thank you for joining us, Greg. And finally, we have, I'm sorry if Amanda.
Hi guys, Amanda Crow with WWC Global. I myself am a veteran of the Navy Reserves, and I've also been married to a Navy Master Chief for going on 20 years, who's actually getting ready to retire at the end of this month. So around the community for quite a while. I worked in the military spouse employment space for about 6.5 years, starting with an organization called In-Gear Career, which then merged with Hiring Our Heroes. So I worked at HOH for a while and then came to WWC Global to join their recruiting team. We as a firm are a woman-owned small business founded by military spouses. So a huge focus of our recruiting is on the veteran and military spouse space. We have about 350 employees worldwide, and almost 70% of those have some sort of military affiliation, whether they be a veteran, a spouse, or some of us are both. So we really look forward to sharing more about the company as we get into this, and always welcome the opportunity to connect with this audience so that we can hopefully recruit you into our ranks.
Thank you very much, Amanda, and thank you, Greg and Jason, for those introductions. Let's get started with our first question. So COVID-19 has definitely had an impact on all career fields, but the essential work of the federal government and defense missions doesn't stop, as many of us know. What's the climate at the moment, and what do you feel is the long-term outlook for government contracting?
I can start since I'm not muted. So obviously one of the biggest changes during the COVID pandemic and everything else is a lot of contractors were allowed to telework, which never have been able to do so before. There's always been kind of a level of oversight in government contracting that made remote positions, I wouldn't say non-existent, but a little more rare in that space. And so right now, almost 2 years after, kind of sending everyone home, we still have a huge percentage of our workforce, at least, who are at least partial telecommuting, doing some sort of hybrid position. We are starting to see a return to the workplace. So I would caution the job seekers in thinking that everything has gone and will stay remote, because we're not seeing that, and we are having government customers kind of return. But in a good way too, still seeing a little more flexibility than we have in the past.
Jason, Greg, do you either of you want to add anything to that?
Sure. I'll add that I think one of the things I see really coming out of the pandemic is a partnership. So take the politics aside, one of the things we saw was that in the pandemic that government and industry work together, whether it be about testing, vaccines, rollouts, logistics, supply chain, there's a partnership. And I think that partnership will continue to grow. It certainly existed beforehand, but the government recognizes that private industry has a tremendous amount of intellectual ability. We're able to develop rapidly, kind of that iterative process exists. And so they look for organizations in contracting in a partnership. There's just things that the government's great at. I'm certainly not going to suggest that any private organization schedule the next battlefield operation. But I do think there's opportunities for organizations to build. And just an easy example of where I've seen that cooperation is we all hear about a global chip shortage. And where we see this three-way partnership is Intel, certainly a leader in the chip production. They needed a partnership with the government to be able to quickly get access and zoning and land to be able to build new facilities. And Jacobs partners with Intel, and we're building 2 new chip production facilities in Arizona and Ohio. And it's that three-way partnership, 2 industries to be able to solve a global problem, that one of those that came out of the pandemic on labor shortages and supply chain, and then working with the government to expedite that process.
Okay. Greg, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, for us, I can tell you, it was definitely something new. Where we were able to make sure people were safe and in being in the client space. Of course, there are certain things that we do where remote deliverability is not, even remotely possible. But we made sure that the safety and well-being of our employees was maintained. And of course, we work with our government clients to make sure that happened. But we pretty much Katie barred all our doors to all our locations. And we were still able to provide, and, from a deliverable perspective, in working with the government client, it definitely opened up their eyes too. They realized, I think, they're all of that adage of, hey, if you're not here, you're not working. And, I know there's folks within Booz Allen in the same way, but we continue to deliver efficiently and effectively, and it definitely opened up the eyes. But as we start opening up our offices again, it's going to be I think for us, we're going to be in a somewhat hybrid model, where it may not be required every day that you go into an office, but functionally, we're still working through those kinks, but I can tell you this, that we are definitely seeing still a lot more folks ask us about remote opportunities and remote deliverability. So it's something that I think will be here for the time being. To what scale is to be determined, but you know, we'll adjust accordingly.
I think now that everybody's gotten a taste of remote work, some people don't necessarily want to give that aspect up. In your particular businesses, what do you feel are the high demand needs at this time? And what are the top roles that you're hiring for? And also what locations are kind of the hot locations right now?
Highly cleared, anything highly cleared and highly technical for us. And I think that's, everybody's going to say that. Jason, Amanda, I think they're both going to parrot that. But, you know, for us, it's anything in the digital space, digital solutions. So, you know, software development, cloud development, network engineering, data analytics, AI, machine learning. You know, those are definitely hot buttons for us, as well as the high level clearances. And again, I know they're going to say the same, but there's definitely a shortage. I wish that I had somehow had a TSSCI tree in the backyard where I can go and just pluck people off of it, because it would make my job much easier. But yeah, those are some of our big ones. And from a location perspective, you know, it's global for us. We have a functionality now on our webpage, on our career section of our webpage, for those folks that are looking to, you know, see our remote opportunities. You can scroll down, you can, you know, toggle down, and it'll say yes or no, and then all of our remote opportunities will come up. But you know, for us, it's pretty much location. There's no location that's you know, any less than the others in terms of where we need people.
Amanda, any specific locations for you, or Jason, any specific locations where you have a number of openings?
Yeah, I mean, we, like Greg said, you know, we're the highly cleared is always something we're looking for, those technical positions. For us, I will also say though, we have a lot in federal finance. So looking at military finance, budgets, acquisition, all of the, you know, working on the annual allocation documents and those types of things are a big one for us. That's where we got our start, was federal finance. So anyone in that kind of finance realm, we're definitely interested in. And then we also actually are the prime contractor for Special Operations Command in their military and exercise planning program worldwide. So lots of positions. If you have worked with special operations in the past, I will say those positions are pretty specialized, and they do usually require prior special operations experience. But that's going to be another one. And then a new space for us that we are getting into quite a bit is international development. So we've got some contracts with USAID or USAID, depending on which person you talk to, how you say it, but we've got some positions there that are posted. And I know some that will be posted in the coming days that are fully funded positions that we're working to fill. For us, in terms of location, we're headquartered in Tampa. And a lot of the special operations positions are going to base out of Tampa, though, of course, there's a few other locations, and we do have some folks overseas for some of those positions. And then Washington, D.C. is another big concentration for us, of course. And I know, you know, all the other firms have a concentration there too, but those are going to be two hot spots, but we do have positions all over the place. So we're pretty global as well. And you'll see a variety just kind of depending on the week and what contract has come open and has some options for that at the moment.
Jason, how about you guys?
No, so I'm going to give one piece as a ditto, as Greg said. I don't need to repeat everything he said on the clearance and the skills. That is an absolute. And our locations, we are a global organization, operations around the world and around the US. I once showed somebody a Hiring Our Heroes program map, and they said, is that a Jacobs map? And our locations align so closely. Tampa, Dallas, Colorado Springs, the National Capital Region, and then up and down the West Coast. So it really is broad. I wanted to share a couple other examples of areas we're seeing as really hot skills that are outside everything Greg mentioned, because those are definitely hot. But a couple of them are operational technology. And some people said, what is that? And it is the idea of cyber wrapped around infrastructure. And if we all remember a couple of years ago, maybe it was a year ago, there was a pipeline hack and somebody hacked an East Coast gas pipeline and caused shortages. And so operational technology looks at how do we secure the infrastructure, bridges, dams, pipelines, anything that moves in infrastructure, and how do we secure that to prevent something like that hack that shuts down US infrastructure. So that's operational technology. We are very involved in that and seeing a tremendous demand, and it's often a career pivot for someone with a cyber background, but also someone that has an engineering background. And the other area that I like to mention, because it's someone we don't think about, but there's a phrase of water is the new gold. It's absolutely inaccurate, and we pay more for it in some cases, but we do a lot of the water and wastewater treatment for organizations around the country. So a good example is in Goodyear, Arizona. Arizona, of course, water is a premium, and we handle all of the water and wastewater treatment of those organizations. And we do SkillBridge opportunities to train individuals coming out of the military. We'll train them as a water operator. They don't have to have any water operations experience, but if they're coming off a ship dealing with water on those ships, that's a great. We'll train them, get them a water operator license, and then get them into the career. And we do those in multiple locations. So water and wastewater is one of our hottest areas of growth outside of those areas Greg mentioned.
Okay, sounds great. Lots of different opportunities and lots of different locations. So if I'm a veteran or a military spouse watching or participating today, how can I highlight my military or my civilian experience to show that I'm qualified to support government projects? Are there any specific certifications that are helpful? Is there clearances? Are there any particular skills that you might be looking for?
So while we were chatting, I answered one of the questions somebody asked, almost the same one in the chat. And so I'll just kind of share what I said there on certifications. And that is, read up on DoD 8570. It is basically a list of, if you're going to be a civilian, what are the certifications that you have to work on a government computer? And it's crazy because you can be in uniform one day doing everything that you're doing on that government computer with no certification. The next day you could be doing the exact same work on the exact same terminal. But when you're not in uniform, you've got to have that 8570 certification. So read up on those. It's IT heavy, but it's in a lot of other areas. Basically, if you're touching a government computer, you're going to need to have one of those 8570 certifications. And the other one you mentioned on military spouse and identification, I'm a big fan of military spouses identifying that they are a military spouse. I think one of the great ways to do it is actually on your LinkedIn profile, in your headline. If anybody looks at my LinkedIn profile, you'll notice the headline says Veteran and Military Spouse Advocate, or you could even listen in a summary as a military spouse. So it's not a job, it's not a skill, although there's a lot of work that goes into it. But I think identifying a military spouse on your profiles on LinkedIn is a great way to stand out, because there's organizations like us that are actively looking for military spouses, because we know they're educated, they connect to the mission, and they absolutely know how to adapt to change.
Okay, Amanda, Greg?
Yeah, so one of the answers, even when I worked at Hiring Our Heroes and was kind of doing career prep for everybody, we've all heard everyone say, tailor your resume to each job and do all of that. And I know as a job seeker, if not overwhelming, it's at least mundane when you feel like you have to do that, and it's tedious, I guess is probably the better. But I cannot emphasize enough as a recruiter, if you want to highlight your skills, be it from the military or other positions, you really just have to make sure to spell it out. And I don't just mean acronyms, because I can tell you for companies like those of us on the panel, and any that are certainly what I know we used to like to call veteran ready or military spouse ready, we may even know some of the acronyms. I don't want you to over translate. That's another thing. Like, don't try to put it in like basic civilian terms all the time, because sometimes we're actually looking for those specific military terms based on the types of positions that we're recruiting for. So the best answer I can give is just do your homework on each job. And it doesn't mean, copy and paste keywords all the time. But if you apply for one of my positions that says you need special operations experience, if I can't find it in your resume, you'll be disqualified at the beginning. I mean, if you didn't take the time to spell it out. Same thing with some of those technical positions, the certifications can vary depending on what they are. But if I'm looking for someone that can work in SQL or build databases or knows Hadoop or some of the other like really technical things, if you know it but you don't list it, I won't find you. So just make sure you're taking the time for those specific items to spell them out and make sure that we can see it, whether it's in your application, cover letter, or LinkedIn profile, and all of that. So yeah, do your homework.
Yeah, I just want to add, in terms of the resume, any seasoned recruiter is going to be able to look at a resume and within the first 10 seconds of looking at that resume, determine whether or not they're going to move forward with the individual whose resume that belongs to. One thing that I caution you all on from a resume writing perspective, and I'm even reluctant to say no more than 3, but usually two pages is good. Do not, please do not attach a government resume to a civilian job that's 25 pages long, because as soon as I open it, if I see 25 and I just see bricks of paragraphs, no. Recruiters don't have the time to read through that and understand that there is 2 different processes. The government side wants that format for when you upload it, and it does what it does from an analytic perspective and looking at it. But from a civilian perspective, please, 2, no more than 3.
Thank you, Greg. That's good advice. And if you're out there listening and you have that 25-page resume, if you connect through Hiring Our Heroes with our career connectors, they can get you linked up with some other organizations that can help you civilianize your resume so that you can then submit it for one of these wonderful jobs.
Alice,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if I could just add, it's something that Amanda said in terms of, the resume. Make sure it's spelled out. I had a cybersecurity analyst who was a cybersecurity analyst. There was the word cybersecurity was nowhere on this person's resume. You had to actually it was there, but you had to find it. So, make sure that you are really looking at those jobs and the requirements for them, and that you can speak to them through your resume. So thank you.
Great advice. I have one reminder before we go on to our next question. If you do have questions, please make sure that you are putting them in the Q&A section on Zoom and not the chat section, just so we can ensure that we're catching all the questions that are out there. And again, our staff are doing their best to answer all of your questions as quickly as they can. What are some of the paths to career progression within government contracting? And what are some examples of how a new hire can advance their career over time within your company?
I mentioned it a minute ago, so I'll touch on that briefly, but that idea of a water operator, where somebody can come into the organization and they have basic mechanical skills. Are they able to work with machinery and equipment? And we're going to train them on the water operator certification, and then they progress through multiple levels, working with water, working with wastewater, then water. It's kind of the progression of that path. But another one that I like to kind of give is an IT example. Is someone can come in as a help desk analyst. And a lot of times, if you have a TS/SCI clearance, for example, and have very minimal IT experience, we can train you up to work on the Special Forces program and supporting Special Forces IT. And then you can work your way from a help desk analyst to a junior systems administrator to a systems administrator and work your way up. And do you want to work with hardware, with networks, with software-defined networks, and you can move into cyber. So help desk, if you want to pivot into technology, is a great area to get your foot in the door, because you're touching multiple aspects of software and hardware. And then build your certifications, partner with great mentors, and work your way up through those paths.
That's great advice too, right? Sometimes you have to take that first job in order to move up that ladder to your dream job. Greg?
Yeah, there's really no clear path. I get that question a lot from folks sometimes, and it's hey, what can I do to ascend the ranks? I mean, the one beautiful thing about no longer being on active duty is you don't have to worry about time to rank or grade. If it's going to be, it's up to me. That mentality has to be first and foremost in your mind as you move forward with your next career. But for us, there is no clear path. There are folks that come in and they'll do, let's say they'll be an intel analyst, and they'll stay in that path the whole time that they're here. You have the opportunity to be part of proposal teams. You have the opportunity to maybe upskill or reskill yourself. There are folks that have come in as an Intel analyst and are now doing data analytics. Other folks that have come in as data analysts and now they're doing cyber or they're coding. We've got over 6,000 in-person online training courses that you can utilize, as well as flex ed benefits. So from there, it's basically whatever path you want to build. But I often encourage folks, don't put the cart before the horse. Get into an organization, learn about that organization, and then decide from there where you want to go. In terms of, hey, do I want to stay in this path or do I want to venture into something? Technology is forever changing. We've evolved as an organization. We've become much more technologically driven in our mission and what the type of work that we are delivering on. So, you have the opportunity to do that, but just get in and get your feet underneath you, and then you can kind of plot your path from there.
Amanda, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would echo the same thing, and some examples within WWC Global, at least, that are really great are, one of the things, especially I know on the military spouse side, you don't always come in with a clearance, right? And so I know we get that question a lot, like, if I don't have a clearance, how can I possibly get into government contracting? And the answer is that, there are positions that don't require a clearance or that don't require a clearance to start. And you kind of have to know what you're looking for. One thing that I would caution folks on, though, is if the position says secret clearance required or TS required, it's not always up to the company. In fact, in my experience, at least, it's mostly not up to the company whether or not we'd want to put you in for one just because you have all of the other skills. The reality is that process takes a really long time to get those clearances. But we have numerous folks in our company who started with us on positions that didn't require a clearance. And then we were able to put them in on one, seeing the path that they were taking, seeing the things that they were learning, and prepping them to join a contract that required that security clearance, or getting permission from the government customer to grant them an interim clearance while we went through the process. But again, I can tell you that happens a lot more with people that we already know and have already hired, rather than folks from the outside. So, and the other piece that I was thinking of in terms of examples for growth and really being able to kind of learn the new things, we have positions like at the State Department, for example, or within DHS that are administrative roles, but they are administrative roles serving high-ranking government officials and working on policy, working on, and again, it's assisting with that, sure. But just like Greg and Jason were talking about, getting your foot in the door gives you the opportunity to then, further talk about your skill set and develop that skill set, whether it be through, we've let folks side saddle with other analysts, on our other contracts when it's not crossing classified information, so that they can learn new methods of data analytics and some of the different technical things. So again, that foot in the door thing that we've all heard is really true. And so keep an eye out for those positions that get you next to what you'd like to do in the long term. And then know that I'm sure any of our companies want to nurture that talent and let you grow, because then we've got an asset as well.
So Amanda, just a follow-up question. So if I see a job that has a certain level of security clearance required, is it worth it to apply even if I don't have that security clearance, or I should look for a job that doesn't?
It's really not, unfortunately, because in our case, at least, or again, in the government contracting realm, the government has set the clearance requirements for the company and said, we need a technical so-and-so, we need an administrative personnel, whatever it is, with this level of security clearance. And the reality is we typically are not given 6 to 9 months to find somebody. And that's how long it can take to get a clearance. What you could look for, however, at least the way we word our job descriptions, we have positions that will say things like must be able to obtain, a secret clearance, or must be able to obtain whatever it is. And in those cases, we can often, we will often put the person in for that clearance, but it's just that we've been given the flexibility to start with someone that does not have a clearance. So those are sometimes good pathways. The other thing I would say is if you've recently held a clearance or were just using it, really kind of, if you still have access to your former security officer, get to know how that stuff works. Because I will tell you, there is a grace period. It's usually 2 years from the last time you've used that security clearance where it's still active. So a lot of people who've had clearances in the past know those investigations last longer, but only if you're actively using the clearance. So if you left a cleared position and went somewhere else, the kind of clock starts ticking on how long that clearance is active. So in those cases, if you're not sure if it's active or not sure that those kind of things, the application may be worth it, because then you could say, you know, I last used it in whatever, and we could probably help find out if it's still active. If you've never held a clearance or it's been a number of years since you've used it, we just typically don't have the flexibility if it says it's required.
Okay, thank you.
If I can highlight one
Go ahead.
thing really quickly that Amanda mentioned, she touched on, and I just want to highlight because it's so important. Really read the language around the clearances. When you asked about applying for a job, if a clearance is required, we will very clearly articulate what clearance level is required to begin the role, or what clearance level is able to be obtained during the role. If we can obtain it for you, we can sponsor you for clearance. We're absolutely going to do that. We're going to put that in the job description. If it's firm required on day one, we're going to put that. So really carefully read that. And there really is no flexibility on what we put in there.
Okay, thank you. What can someone expect in terms of compensation? What are pay structures and benefits as a contractor? Are they different from the military? And what are some other considerations to take into, what are some other aspects to consider?
You know, I'm going to dispel one silly myth. And it used to be out there more, and it's kind of dropping off. So a lot of times someone say, hey, I'm retired military and I don't need your medical benefits. Can I get more money for that? And I actually remember a time where I had a good friend work for Northrop Grumman, and at the time, Northrop Grumman gave a $400 a month addition if you turned down their benefits as retired military. That doesn't exist in that capacity any longer. Very, very few organizations do. They're self-insured. It's an actuarial formula. So know that kind of what you choose is not really a key factor. What I will say is that on compensation, we see this a lot. The laws in states are varying. Colorado was the first that said you had to provide a pay range on a job description. And so all the organizations that are doing business in Colorado choose to do so. And I think it's funny when I see companies say that we will not hire individuals living in the state of Colorado because they don't want to disclose that. But what I also encourage you to know is that is a range. And every company has a pay range. It's a band. And if someone is low on experience, but maybe they have something that's valuable and they can invest in training, they may hire them on the low end of that range because they're going to invest in the training for that person. Maybe they can get a certification or pursue a degree or additional experience. If someone is very, very high on all of the experience and qualifications they need, they may be able to obtain a higher end of that pay range. But the key piece I tell everybody is almost always that ranges, companies are looking to pay at the midpoint. We call it midpoints of salary bands. So look, if we list 100 to 150K, imagine that we're probably targeting 125. And most companies, if you're going to pay more than 10% below the midpoint or over 10% above the midpoint, you usually have to get comp approval. So we're really trying to target in that range. So know that a range is a range, and the midpoint is a good target point. The other thing I do encourage all those that are transitioning from the military is really understand 401k match. It's a piece that's so different than your military comp, a benefit that usually you're not involved with. It varies significantly. I know companies that have no 401k match, and I worked for an organization that had a 10% 401k match. And as you can imagine, 0 to 10%, that's a significant difference in compensation. Yeah. And that is money that's going to you, and it's tax-free money, that match. So make sure you understand match and you're asking that question.
Yeah, I'll piggyback onto that. With the 401k match, also ask about vesting. How long do you have to stay with the company? How long is left on this particular contract? Because if your vesting period with the company is 5 years, there's only 2 years left on this contract, what happens in the delta after that. And a lot of companies can move folks around. So I'm not suggesting that people are, companies are just going to drop folks, but definitely ask about those vesting periods too, because that can play in on the 401k. The other thing I will say about compensation is, again, a lot of it is contract driven. And I'll speak for us as a smaller firm, and not implying anything about the larger firms, because I've worked for larger firms too. But as a smaller firm in particular, when we've priced out a contract, we won the contract based on our proposal. We had to turn in pricing to the government when we did so. And that pricing determines what we can do in terms of salary for these positions. We may have some flex within a contract, but at least for us as a smaller firm, there are not a lot of instances where we're going to go way outside that range, like Jason was talking about, because we can't just eat that on this to get the right person in the door, quote unquote. That just doesn't work, especially in a smaller firm. And like I said, I'm not suggesting the larger firms can do that all the time either. They're just know that compensation is not random, in terms of when we tell you this is our range and we can just do whatever we want. We really do have pricing that we've turned in. And then like Jason said, sometimes we have to get approval to even go outside of that, based on what we told the government we were going to pay. So the good news is that means if you come in $30,000 lower than our range, you didn't just lowball yourself. We're not gonna drop your pay by $30,000 because, oh, they didn't know, they asked me for 50 and we're paying 80. We still have to land in that range. So do know that about compensation too. Last thing on this, for folks who spend a lot of time in the military, just know that while companies like ours and most companies really do value that experience, very rarely in government contracting is there a line item that states we just need someone with general military experience, right? So to put a dollar value on your military experience is kind of a misnomer. We do know that there's value to it. We do understand the structure and all of the skills that you likely gained as a military member, regardless of what your actual job was. But just know that's not enough for us to, match your salary coming out of the military, or enough for us to make you a project manager. And again, it's not because we don't value it. It's because those other specific requirements that the government spells out are the things that truly determine what they consider relevant experience and therefore pay, or pay bands, a labor category. So just know that it's valuable, but it's not valuable only on its own, if that makes sense.
Greg, did you want to add in?
Yeah, you have to look at a company's total employee value proposition and truly understand it in its entirety. Don't just look at base salary, look at PTO, look at, as we already mentioned, 401k, flex ed benefits. One thing we do as well is a pay differential for anybody that's in the National Guard or Reserve. Those things, and the fact that you can, you want to be with an organization. If you want to stay connected and you're a reservist or in the Guard, you want to be able to have that flexibility to be able to do your training when you do it. But looking at all that in its entirety, I had a candidate that we were about $5,000 off in salary, actual base salary, but 2 less weeks of PTO, which right there, boom, that took care of that. Then, individual was going to be paying almost double for healthcare. So it ended up that $5,000 in annual salary actually ended up being $30,000 in Booz Allen's favor. So it's looking at the total package. Don't get so wrapped around on the axle with the base salary. The other thing, and Amanda alluded to this, when we are constrained by from a monetary perspective, it's what the contract can truly afford. It's not, we're saying you're not worth that. It's just, hey, I'm bound by this. One thing you want to make sure you do as well, you don't want to outprice yourself, because guess what? In a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to be recompeted. If you're at that highest salary band, that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt across the entirety of the whole contract as a whole from a recompete perspective. So just be aware of that. That's where it's a little bit of a different animal in the world of federal consulting. So just be cognizant of that.
Okay, thank you, Greg. We talked about this a little bit before, virtual. Everything's gone virtual since COVID. And a lot of times now the hiring process is completely virtual, from the career fair, like the one we're going to have on Thursday, all the way through the interview to the onboarding process. That's probably here to stay to a certain respect. All of your companies will be attending this Thursday's event, which is from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time. How can a candidate make the most of their interactions with the recruiter at one of these events, especially when it's virtual? And how do you think is a good way to prepare for that?
Come in with a plan. You know, come in with a plan. At least, you know, have a look at the companies. You have a list of the companies you're going to attend. You know, prioritize the companies you want to speak to and go to those opportunities first. You may have a waiting line, but just, you know, bear with it, and just be ready to type your fingers off. It's one of those things where, you know, I know some of the things that we ask are, hey, location wise, availability, you know, where do you want to be geographically? What's your availability date, and, you know, what type of opportunity are you looking for? You know, we just try to get some basic information, and then it's a matter of following up with you after the event. But just come in, understand what the company does. Please do not go into a company's booth. And I say this, I laugh as I say it, but it's happened. That's why I'm saying, what do you all have for me? I have almost 3,000 jobs. I don't know anything about, you know, let's have further day. Don't hit me. Don't hit us up with that. You know, just come in and you know, just have a plan and be able to talk about yourself. I mean, nobody knows you better than you. And the more you're able to articulate that, again, I know it's via typewriter, you know, via keyboard. I almost dated myself and I said typewriter. My apologies on that. But so, you know, but just come in with that plan and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
And I would say too, it's probably good to have an idea of who you want to talk to going into something like this, where we have a number of employers. You more than likely are not going to be able to meet with every one of them. So maybe have a list of your top 5 and then research them, and not just know what jobs are available, but also what does this organization do specifically? I know we run into that, you know, talking to other recruiters where they say somebody comes in and they, you know, asking about jobs and like, well, what do you guys do? It's like, well, you need to do a little bit of research so that you can, you know, seem like you have your act together there. Amanda?
Yeah, we've only got 10 minutes roughly with each candidate, if that. And then, you know, like Greg said, there's often a line. So, you know, I do encourage come in with the plan. If you've looked at my positions prior to that and can tell me which ones specifically interest you, bonus points, because I can talk to that much more easily than the kind of what do you guys do, because we do, yeah, we get that every time as well. And then because it is chat, just a kind of functionality tip. Our team actually, we use, it can be anything on your computer, Word, sticky notes, whatever, to have some of the most common answers typed up in advance. For candidates, you can have a brief, and I mean like 3-sentence intro of yourself, you know, typed up that you can put in each of the booths that gets us off on the right foot, you know. My name is Amanda. I'm a veteran and a military spouse. I have a background in finance, looking for jobs in the DC area. You know, what can we do? I most often am going to suggest for folks that seem like they have skills that are in our pipeline, I will also give you homework to reach out to us for an informational interview. To me, that's another way that you can use your time well. And it may not be with the recruiter you're talking to at the virtual event. Just know that, but I don't think it hurts to ask. Is there a way I can get my resume into your database, or a way that I can, you know, follow up with one of your recruiters? And that, for me at least, when our team has the bandwidth to do that, it even ends up more productive. But I love these events for getting us those initial connections. So I would say don't be afraid to ask for those things. But yeah, have that intro kind of ready.
Okay. And Jason, I'm going to cut in here because I want to make sure that we have time to get to our questions from our job seekers. And we are running out of time. So let me start off with one here. Do you ever, we were just talking about these virtual interviews. Do you ever conduct video interviews in your booths? And if you do, what can an applicant do to kind of earn one?
So I would say ask for the video interview. So if the event is in Brazen, then almost always there's the option, and the option has to be extended by the representative working for the company. So if you're available, say, hey, are you available for a video interview, and ask, and that's the best way. Know that sometimes for volume, we have to have 2 chats at the same time, and those have to be text-based. So sometimes we're not able to do a video chat, and that's usually, we want to be able to support as many service members as we can, but ask, and then we often will. And sometimes we'll have a follow-up. So we actually just purchased a Brazen license. So we'll do an event like this, and then we'll have a follow-up event on our own Brazen account where we'll do the virtual video interviews.
Okay. Another one here, and these 2 questions are kind of related a little bit. If somebody has the clearance, but they have only a little bit of the technical training, are there still opportunities available? And then along the same line, if you meet all the requirements, such as the experience and clearance, but you need some training in specific areas like data analytics, is training available for that also?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Just as long as you fill those minimum requirements, all of our job positions or requisitions probably look very similar. You've got a key role, which is the job description. You've got the basic qualifications or the must-haves, and then you've got the additional, the nice-to-haves. As long as you say yes to all of those, it's, that's good, especially the clearance piece. If you don't, as Jason alluded to before, all of our opportunities say what's required. If there isn't a clearance needed on day one, it'll say ability to obtain one. So as long as you can check those boxes, that's fine. And I'm assuming we all have professional development within organizations. I know we do at Booz Allen Hamilton. So it's a matter of, yes, you have the opportunity, you come in and you can get additional training. We also have a tech excellence program in data analytics, as well as cyber and digital solutions. So yes.
And if I can add on that training piece, if they're looking for that pivot, the HOH fellowship, the SkillBridge opportunity with HOH is a tremendous one. I have a fellow currently on my team. She's in cohort 1 of HOH, Erica Beverly, if you want to connect with her. She had no TA experience, but that's what she wanted to do, is work with military and transition. So we were training her in military recruiting. And after, at the end of her fellowship, we will look for an opportunity for her within the organization to join our TA team. So fellowship is truly a great opportunity because I don't have a labor cost. So now I can invest in your training. And that's really what the idea of the program.
Okay. Thank you for that plug there also. I know we talked about resumes a little bit, and we were talking about the 25-page resume versus the civilian resume. Is there a preference over 1 to 2 pages? I know sometimes it's out there, you got to cram everything on that 1 page, but are 2 pages okay?
No more than 2.
No more than 2.
And I once had somebody that had about 8 years of professional experience tell me they couldn't get it to 2. And I said, I beg to differ. I have 30 years of experience and mine's less than 2. So you can make it. The one thing that I would, with that, if you are having issues, I can tell you this. If you're having issues with that, take whatever the job that's the oldest on that resume and put like 2 bullet points.
Yeah.
I can go back 22 years, my Navy career. From that time, I got 2 bullets on my entire resume from that. So, that's I won't say it's the least important because it was a very important time for me, but it just highlight just those, find those 2 bullets that you are most proud of and then go from there.
Okay.
And I'll say, if you have more than probably 5 or 6 years experience, definitely 10 more, you need to have 2. 1 is really not, you're not going to be able to give me a true snapshot of your experience in 1 page.
Okay. Love it. Okay.
I will also, just super quickly, my favorite, there's not a full format, but if you can put those skills bullets at the top, especially if it's a technical job, or if you have specific certifications, those skills bullets, like Greg, I think it was said earlier, we truly do look at resumes lightning fast. So put it at the top, feed it to me, make it easy for me to find when you can do that. And then when you're thinking about those 2 bullets for those older jobs, think of 2 bullets that support the job you're applying for now. What did I do back in the day that still makes sense for what I'm trying to do right now? Those are the things you want to focus on. That's what I need to know.
Okay. How about the hiring process? So we've got the resume, we send the resume in, we get hired. Well, I shouldn't say we get hired. We send the resume in. How much longer is the process for contractors versus like the civilian world or government positions? Oh,
Everybody has a, go ahead, Greg.
Much
Yeah.
faster. Well, or
Yeah,
it
oh,
should
yeah.
be. It should be. Listen, I know folks that 6 months ago they applied for a government position and they're still waiting for initial interview. So it should be quicker. We have several different classifications of jobs that you don't see. Our sold and funded work is, hey, we need to hire you yesterday. Then there's contingent, which is contingent on award. The government released a request for proposal, an RFP. We submit that proposal, and now we're just waiting for the award. Sometimes we will make contingent offers. Those are probably the lowest priority for us, with sold and funded being the highest. And then we have something called capability building, which is us building bench strength. We're looking at a certain skill set that we want to plus up, and we bring folks on. And they're not necessarily assigned to a contract right away, but they will be when we get additional funding for a contract that we have, whatever the case may be. But you're not going to see that as a candidate. But it's one of those things within. For us, is we've got folks that are looking at these. They should be. Some of my TA colleagues do a little bit better job than others in terms of looking at those requisitions every day. But they should be in dispositioning. But you have to understand, if you don't get contacted and you get dispositioned, it wasn't necessarily that you weren't a fit for that role. It just they may have found somebody that was a better fit. The other part of that is you got to understand with some of these jobs, especially the round peg, round hole type jobs, you can get 100, 150, maybe 200 people that apply to that role. I can tell you this, a recruiter does not have there's not enough time in the day, days of the week, so on and so forth, for them to contact everybody that applies to that job. So just be cognizant. Networking is key. You find champions within each organization that can help maybe bring your 36% of our hires this year have been employee referrals. So you get referred by somebody that or that somebody could be your champion. That's going to definitely help your cause. And then finding other and just networking is paramount for sure.
If I can add some of those pieces on that recruiter and candidate partnership, is a couple little things, and I say this almost funny. No recruiter in America is compensated or evaluated by how many candidates they reject. We want to hire candidates. So know that our goal is to hire candidates. Our goal is to bring people on. We do have to get the absolute best person. We get a ton of great applicants. So know that we're not trying to reject more candidates. Our goal is to hire more people, and also understand that recruiting is an overhead, and companies try to manage that closely. So typically recruiters will have between 30 and 50, and I've seen as many as 80 open positions at one time. So understand, even if that's just 40, that's 1 hour a week is all that a recruiter can have to spend on that one position. So your patience is greatly appreciated. Know that we're trying to fill them as quickly as possible. And what Greg said, find a champion in the organization, network with recruiters, network with other veterans in the community, and let them help get you through that path. Become a referral.
And along that, when we talk about how this process moves quickly, once you post a position, how quickly are you looking to fill it? I mean, are you hoping to fill it? If we have transitioning service members, maybe they're a year out or 9 months out, they probably shouldn't be applying for contract positions, correct? Or what's the guidance on that?
That's correct. Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I was going to say, yeah, that's probably correct. Now, the one thing that Greg mentioned in terms of the classifications of positions, and I'm sure Jason has some of that too, we often list positions that are contingent. So again, we're working toward a proposal to get that contract. Those are typically going to have a longer lead time. So having someone put their application in for those may make a little more sense further out for transitioning service members. But 9 months to a year is going to be a pretty tough go. At that stage, I always applaud the service members who are requesting informational interviews or submitting their resumes into, most of us have a talent pool or some way that you can submit a general resume. That makes you searchable in our candidate and our applicant tracking systems, by the way. So it's not just a black hole. We're going to start looking for keywords and key terms, and so may find you that way. But that's what I would recommend at the stage you're talking about, 9 months to a year out. And then finding those champions inside the organization. And I know, many of us are on LinkedIn. You can find my LinkedIn profile easily. It doesn't hurt in those cases. Again, your patience is appreciated. We can't always get back to you super quick, but it doesn't hurt to put out there, hey, it looks like my skills are going to be really valuable to you based on what I do in the military. I'm going to be available in about 6 months. Could we set up an informational call? And something like that will really get you on my radar, or we like to call it in my orbit, in terms of keeping someone in mind, when they come closer to transition. But don't be surprised if we bounce some of it back to you. I'm almost always going to give you homework. Your homework is to put a calendar reminder down and talk to me again in 3 months. And I need you to do it because we've got all these other open recs and fully funded things grabbing our attention. So it's not because you're not memorable. It's just because we're moving in a million directions.
Okay, we're getting towards the end here. Maybe we'll do, I'm gonna do one more question from the Q&A and then we'll do final thoughts. And we had a couple people ask this, if somebody has either their clearance has either expired while they're on active duty or they got out and their clearance is not currently active, thoughts on that for positions? Should they put this on a resume? Will this help them get a job that requires security clearance, or does it need to be active?
Yeah, I think they just need to look at those opportunities that say ability to obtain a clearance.
Okay.
The good part, a lot of people think that, so I'll just throw this out. A lot of people think, oh, well, I got adjudicated right before I got out. So I got out in January of 2021 or 2022. I just got out, and they go and they do something that doesn't require clearance, and they do it for like 3 years. And a lot of people think, oh, well, I was adjudicated, I have a secret clearance, I'm good for 10. No, you're not. You have 2 years from the time you're read off for somebody to pick that clearance back up. If it's not picked back up, it expires, it lapses. Now, the good thing is, with that being said, there is a huge backlog. Of course, we know with clearances, but you really, for moving forward, it's not going to be as tedious because you're only going to have to look from the time of your last periodic reinvestigation to the time that, so it may be only like a 3 or 4 year window. They're not having to go back, 24 years. So, but look at opportunities that say ability to obtain a clearance.
Okay, well, we want to thank you for coming today, sharing these valuable insights to your organization, your industry. I'll give you each a minute to just kind of wrap things up with your words of advice for our viewers. Amanda, ladies first, right?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that I'll reiterate again the most is, even in a company like ours where there really is a lot of human interaction in the hiring process, we're still juggling a lot. So spell it out for us. Tell me what you can do. You really do have to have a plan. And I know, especially on, sometimes for transitioning veterans, but also spouses who've done a million things because they've reinvented themselves. I know that can be difficult, but dive into the process. Take advantage of the HOH and other resources that have programs to help you suss out what you want to do and how you want to get there. And then let us know so we can help. We'd love to hire you. We'd love to plug you in. But unfortunately, we can't create positions for every rock star we meet as much as we'd like to. So help us out, spell it out on your resumes, and really kind of dive in and be your own advocate.
Great advice. Jason?
I'm going to steal the last word she said, an advocate. And I actually just put something in the chat exactly like that with quotes. I want individuals to go to LinkedIn, put it in with those quotes, veteran advocate, search for those individuals and start connecting with veteran advocates. Don't just blindly connect with everybody, but these are individuals who have said, they consciously said on their LinkedIn profile, I want to advocate for the veteran community, connect with those individuals. And particularly if you're moving somewhere, we know that the military doesn't always leave you where you want to be forever. And you may be getting out of the military at Offutt Air Force Base and you don't want to be in Omaha and you want to go to Tampa. And that's really tough. So what I encourage you to do is run that search. Run the search for veteran advocate and then use the filter and filter it to Tampa, Florida. Find individuals who are veteran advocates in the place that you want to be. Wherever you want to be, filter it. Filter by company. There's veteran advocates at Jacobs and at Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman and Booz Allen. So wherever you want to network, use that term, veteran advocate in quotes, and find those and really connect with those people and engage with them.
Okay. Greg?
This can be a daunting task as you're looking in deciding what you want to do with the rest of your life. I'll be 52 in a few days, and I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Nobody knows you better than you. This is your time to go out and understand that you can bring value to any of these three organizations that are on this panel, but just in general. I strongly feel that the more folks that we can inject out into corporate America that have worn the uniform or that have been, caregivers, spouses, whatever the case may be, you have some core traits and characteristics that can't be taught: the leadership, the work ethic, the discipline, the integrity. It's extremely important that you go out and you're able to tell your story. You got to remember that anybody that you speak with, guess what? They put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you and I. Nobody knows you better than you. Go out and do some interview prep, do some prep about learning about the organizations, the industries that you want to be a part of, and network as we've talked about already. So thank you all for being here. More importantly, not more importantly, but Hire Our Heroes, thank you for putting this together. Without you all, we wouldn't all be here today. For those veterans and spouses that are on the call, tell all your friends about Hire Our Heroes. They're doing a fantastic job. And without them, like I said, we wouldn't be here today. So thank you.
Well, and thank you again for joining us. And viewers, we truly appreciate you joining Hiring Our Heroes today and our panelists with all of your great questions. And you'll be able to find this and many other recorded sessions on our Career Services resource page. We do have upcoming virtual and in-person events and workshops. And please also consider signing up for our email newsletter so you won't miss anything, and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. Thanks again to you all, and have a wonderful day.